the biggest entrepreneur destination on the planet. This is Business Rockstars. The biggest entrepreneur destination on the planet. This is Business Rockstars, and I have a rock star for you right now. We've got Rob Mondavi Jr. He is a winemaker and the co-founder of Michael Mondavi Family Estate. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, great to be here. Great to come in and talk a little bit about the wines and what makes our crazy business tick.
And you brought wine, which is even better, so we already like you.
Thank the Lord. And you know what? I tried to bring two that are pretty interesting. Something a little more classic with the Cabernet Sauvignon, and then rosés are just hot in the marketplace
They
today.
are so hot. I am the target audience, being a female millennial. Love me some rosé.
Yep.
But let's talk about your winery. Tell me a little bit about it and how you grew up in the wine business.
Growing up in the wine business is incredible. The irony is you don't know it's incredible until you essentially move out from your very beautiful and insular space. But you grow up in the wine business, you see things and you do things that are just beautiful and very focused in your industry. And our industry is so rich with wine and food pairings, great chefs coming in. I remember being a child and getting to meet Julia Child. I mean, and you know,
so cool.
So cool. I
Yeah.
offered, of course, to let her ride my brand new 10-speed bicycle at the time, and the poor thing had no idea what to do with that. But it's great though, because you meet these wonderful icons of the industry, and they become part of the world you live and grow up in. So they don't seem anything different than a family friend. And you start to get out into the world and realize then how profoundly special it is and was that I got to hang with Julia Child when I was 12 years old.
What was it like working with your family growing up?
Sticky. Literally sticky, and not being cheeky, because everything in the winery when the grapes come in is covered with sugar. The grapes are about 26 degrees sugared, and everything that they come in contact with has this beautiful little sticky film on it, and it's sweet. You can't help but smell it and feel it in the air.
It sounds amazing, but I will say a lot of people advise you to not work with family. So are there any cons to working with family?
There's always cons to working with family, but the pros outweighs the cons. Now, the cons, I think, are fairly obvious, though. At the end of the day, when you want to hang your shovel and you want to just relax and maybe vent about the day, who do you vent to?
Yeah.
When you and there's hierarchy in any company, and if your dad's the top of the food chain at the time, then you're complaining about your boss, but you're also lamenting about then family. So you have to be very careful of how you balance taking it personally because it's dad, or is it because this is my CEO and he wants more research, he wants more data on a project. And I think once an individual and a collective family can learn to compartmentalize what is business and what is personal, it runs easier.
And you did decide to leave the family business and wine for a little bit. Was that a good decision, and what did you learn?
It was a great decision, and we have to digress to the question of why, though. So after university, my sister and I, wanted to be in their original company, and we wanted to apply for management positions, my mom and dad wanted my sister and I to be outside the wine industry and outside our business specifically for at least 5 years.
Oh, wow.
Go out, learn something different, stub your toe, understand that when a boss tells you no, or that you need to go do your homework a little bit deeper, or here's a great success, that this is part of life. And I chose a few different businesses. I was in the cigar business and made cigars in Central America and imported them and distributed them throughout the United States. And that was a kick. That was a tremendous experience, and I loved it. But it also, when you go outside of the family business, yes, there is the lost time of being in the family business, but there's the gain of what is out there in the world, and there's the gain that you want to be within your family business. So then when you come back into it, it's not just a passion because you grew up in it, it's a passion and a calling that you return to.
Amazing. So at what point did you guys co-found and start Michael Mondavi Winery?
Great, and that's the transition between the Robert Mondavi Winery and then when we left there and started the Michael Mondavi Family Estate. And this is this lovely little ball of twine that's confusing. So digressing in history, the fast history is that
please inform us.
My grandfather Robert and my father Michael Mondavi in 1966 had their first vintage at the Robert Mondavi Winery. From 66 until 2004, the family was together. We were public for a blink of an eye, from 94 to 2004. And in 2004, that moment in time happened where Dad and I decided, and my sister decided it was time to leave the Robert Mondavi and to start something small and personal again. And then shortly thereafter, the Robert Mondavi Winery sold to a large drinks company out of New York. So we decided that we wanted to be back to what was important to us, which was making small lot, beautifully well thought wines. You know, what I brought in today to show you is something classic. You know, we have our Cabernet here, which is only 1,000 cases, but it's very, very much more formal, very elegant, and then something fun. So we want to be able to have wines that address what's the market trend today, and then we also want to be able to have wines that are very stately, very focused, that we can lay down in the cellar for whether it's a year or whether it's 5 years or 30 years.
Yeah, that's amazing. So tell me a little bit more about your role in the business now. Like, what is a typical day like, if there is one?
A typical day doesn't have a nice jacket on here. A typical day is, jeans, some hiking boots, and then, well, I have to have a shirt too. But, and then into the vineyards or into the winery. And the vineyards for me are tantamount to the success of a great wine. So we spend a very disproportionate amount of time in the vineyards and making sure that everything is set up so that when we do bring the grapes into the vineyards, that it's about as close to a layup as you can get. And so vineyards and winemaking are where I spend my day.
How do you strike that balance between carrying on the family legacy, but also making it your own too, and staying with the times and being progressive in your industry?
So I brought two for us to talk about. One's Isabel Mondavi and the other's Animo, but we have a third one really called Emblem. And so we have to have wines that are more trendy, and then the next level up, Emblem, which is a little more trendy, but also can be traditional, so it's not tacking quickly. And then, lastly is your highest tier wine, which really should be able to be sat down in front of somebody in Bordeaux or a wine collector from around the world, whether it's 10 years ago or 10 years in advance. That allows the individual family members, as they're coming up through the ranks, to have different levels of creativity.
Yeah.
And it's a really neat way to look at it. I love the fact that if I look at a fashion house, I can see that a fashion house 50 years ago has the images that it does today, but it is completely new and avant-garde and current in the moment, yet it still has that semblance of the past and the history of the past.
That's a really great analogy. I love it. Well, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about breaking into the wine industry. Is it possible if you didn't grow up in a family winery? We're going to answer that and so much more when we come back. We are the biggest entrepreneur destination on the planet. This is Business Rockstars. The biggest entrepreneur destination on the planet. This is Business Rockstars, and we continue our conversation now with Rob Mondavi Jr. He is a winemaker and the co-founder of Michael Mondavi Family Estate. So obviously you had the benefit of growing up in wineries, but is it possible to break into the industry if you didn't?
It is. And I say it is with a little spring and emphasis, because I love it when new people are coming into the industry. You do get a little jealous, but let's talk about why though. Because I think when new people are coming into our business, they're coming in because they have a great passion for it. This business is a tough business economically to profit. It takes time. We have a long capital cycle, a long ROI cycle. So people coming into this business have a passion for what they're doing. And when people have a passion for what they are doing, they tend to make great products, and they seek out the best ways to do that. New technologies, new opportunities, and just little nuances that make wine one step better.
What if they don't know the technology piece or the agriculture piece, I should say? Is that something you can get help with?
Absolutely. And today is probably the richest opportunity that we've had in the last half century for somebody from outside the industry to come into the industry. Today there are remarkable winemaking consultants who are available for hire.
Now, you are self-funded, so this is especially maybe accessible for somebody who can self-fund their business. Are there investors in this space? Is it something where you can get investors and start a winery?
There are opportunities for that. I've seen that with some of my friends who I've grown up with, who have decided that they wanted to, instead of taking all the opportunity and all the risk as well for themselves, they have opened up the opportunity and they've invited investors to come in. And being an investor in the wine business has some remarkable perks. First and foremost, there's access to the wines. Secondly, you tend to invest into a group of experts who are going to handle the winemaking in the vineyards and the go-to-market strategies, and then you get to partake in that. So it is possible to either start something and to gain investors or to find really beautiful high-tier wine companies to invest into. It's all private market, it's all word of mouth, it's very sub-sigillum, but it's wonderful. So I know if you want it, you can find it.
Now, obviously, winemaking business, very competitive business.
Yes.
Everyone's got their own theory on what makes you stand out, differentiate yourself from the competition. Is it the label? Is it the price point? Maybe it's several things. Can you speak to what makes you stand out and competitive in this industry?
You know, as an industry, it's a little bit of everything, and fortunately, there's great market analytics. You know, we can understand if you want to be a California AVA wine and you're $10.99 a bottle. That is one set of matrix that is great. You know, you need the supermarket channel, and then you need to go beyond that. You need your advertising, your funding. That is big business. That is hundreds of thousands of cases. It is a tough category to enter. Profit margins are even more narrow. As we move from a bigger region then into Sonoma, Napa, we start to find that your brands can be smaller. There tends to be a higher investment level on a per case basis or per acre basis if you're investing there, but there also is then the return as well. I like being smaller. I like being focused. I love the craft orientation of being hands-on, you know, walking in the vineyards, creating the fermentations and so on. That's where I really enjoy it. But to gain that entry, whether it's the volume tier or the high tier, there is information out there and there is information available. I personally think Silicon Valley Bank is probably the most astute and it has the best depth of information available. And I truthfully think that they are quite brilliant in how they analyze the market.
Good insight. And obviously, it's not just about the product, it's also about what's going on behind the scenes and the leadership, too. And I know that you're a big proponent of having strong leaders within your company, you being one of them. So if you could tell me, what do you think makes a great leader?
Yeah, truthfully, I've just started feeling in the last few years as if I'm truly leading a team and being a leader, which is different than a manager. And I really felt that way when I started to be able to really clearly define what my expectations were, and then how do I start to inspire and coax out of the individuals of my team their best attributes, and give them a safety net of what are the parameters, give them a safety net of where my expectations are, but also find a way to get their creativity going and to push them. And it's been maybe it's having children, maybe it's being 45, but it's been a shift in the last few years from managing people to leading people, and it's felt good. And it's felt good to let people have the success that they've earned and that we've created together. It's neat.
Yeah, you can do so much more together and when everyone's at the top of their game and, you know, in touch with those creative juices. I love it. Really good stuff. Thank you so much for your time and all of your insight. What a fun industry you're in.
Well, I love that you had me today, and thank you for talking about wine. It's a great passion of mine and the family, and look for more to come from us.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Rob Mondavi Jr., he's a winemaker and co-founder of Michael Mondavi Family Estate, and we are the biggest entrepreneur destination on the planet. This is Business Rockstars.